There we go. That's better. All right, welcome everyone. Sorry for the late start this evening. I'd like to get our meeting started, and we can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, I can do the roll call this evening. Thomas? Here. Otto? Here. Westover, absent with notice. Engstrom, here. Dockett? Here. Braun? Here. Chick? Here. Thank you. On to adopt the balance of the agenda. Any deletions or additions, anyone? I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Support. Engstrom motioned. And
a very late request came in. I truly apologize. I just recalled it. If I can add it to the agenda, and I can discuss it if need be. The Living Water Church is asking to do a
number 8, Howard.
Well, I'm going to ask for it, and if it is allowed, it would be number 8. Living Water Church is asking to do a caroling program in conjunction with the Kiwanis selling of the Christmas trees at 75 Barker. I didn't have any issues with it, but given that they want to start advertising that, then it would need to be voted on tonight, if that is your pleasure.
I have no problem adding that to the agenda. Any objections? Great. So number 8 will be Living Water caroling with Kiwanis.
Sorry about that, guys. It came in late today, and I had to go home right after work to watch Elliot before Eliza got home. So
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Chick motioned and Thomas supported. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, on to our next item, which is the call to the public. It's an opportunity for anyone to get up and speak, share your thoughts. We do limit you to 3 minutes, and keep in mind it is not a question and answer session. We have our first speaker.
Hi, Ed Voitis, 6235 Hellner Road. Now that the board knows that the plan to borrow $800,000 without sending out notice to the township residents through a postcard is against township ordinances, I hope you guys will move swiftly to correct that. I think it would be very helpful at the time you send out that postcard to include a couple of dates so that you could ask for public comment about that plan. I was part of the board when that ordinance was enacted, and we're very proud of that after the fiasco about all of the borrowing for this building and how it got out of control. And that ordinance was an attempt to instill some transparency about what went on between the board and the township. So I would ask you guys to honor that ordinance, send out the postcard, get public comment. The second side of that is whether or not the township residents should be held on the hook for that sewer extension that's going to benefit a few businesses down Whitmore Lake Road. Being a private citizen that pays his taxes, I still remember when I was on the board when a number of those businesses did not pay their taxes, didn't pay their sewer bills, and even after 4 years on the board, there were still that some were unresolved, and as far as I know, some of them were never paid. So to ask the residents now to pay for a sewer or be held responsible for a loan for a sewer extension when those businesses are capable of doing it themselves, and they haven't been good players in the township at times, to me that's a little bit difficult to take. So I would really ask you to seek public comment, add some transparency to this, and hopefully do it in a manner of good public policy. It's one thing if you have businesses, we should support the businesses in our township, absolutely. But the ones that are not good players, that don't pay their taxes, that's kind of tough to ask residents to foot the bill or be on the hook for their loan. So I thank you for your time and your efforts. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, you too. Any other speakers this evening?
Good evening, 6431 Whitmore Lake Road, Udo Hof. And I'm here to do a repeat of the last meeting where it was the last hearing about the SDA planned sewer district for Whitmore Lake Road. And I have to say that I'm absolutely disappointed how you as a board handle us as a constituency. It was our last legal chance to defend ourselves. We made this, my wife and I, we made this point with the presentation of our attorney very strongly to you that we are here to defend our rights as citizens for this planned sewer district. You wiped it off the plan here, and this is uncalled that I have to come up in the front of the board and to defend myself and my family a second time. So it is really time that this needs to be corrected here, and if you don't know about the rules of a hearing, then please go and educate yourself about this. But my family have the rights to come up to the last hearing, and we have to defend ourselves. You have to listen to us, you have to discuss this within the board, and you have to come up forward with a suggestion to us. This didn't happen, so I question very much the legal status of this last hearing towards us citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight?
Pass this up. There's more than 4 people here. My name's Craig Warbert, and I live at 450 West Joy Road. And although sewers are a great topic, I'm really here about the fact that you are the governing legislative body for this township. And we look to you all to protect our interests. You seem to control the Planning Commission. You populate its board, you control its purse strings, you give it projects. Suddenly, transparency is a thing of the past in that group, and I suspect that that emanates from this body. I don't understand lowering the bar with the collection of minutes to the point where it's nothing more than an attendance record and a voting record. For years, this township has had minutes you could pick up and read and get some semblance of what went on at the meeting without necessarily having to sit through Jim's wonderful videos. The minutes for the Planning Commission have almost vaporized to nothing. I read the last minutes for this body, and it said that Mr. Dockett spoke at the end of the meeting, and it did no description of if he was for or against, about or not about any specific topic, just that he said something in the comments from the commissioners. My experience with public bodies has been when a public body decides they need to change their bylaws and do it rapidly, there's something afoot. Maybe something needs to be hidden. Maybe there's something dastardly going on, I don't know. But I thought it was interesting at the last Planning Commission meeting they considered removing appearances of impropriety from the definition of conflict of interest. They're interested in reducing the number of votes necessary to alter our master plan from 6 to 4. They no longer want to post active projects in the newspaper. They want notification to take place on the bulletin board in front of this building. These are not steps from a group that's trying to protect us and involve us. I'm really tired of every other week on Tuesday or Wednesday having to come down here to see that my interests are being watched over. And they're not anymore. I ignored this board since 1993, actually when I sued Ameritech over a cell tower, and it was really great being involved with the Planning Commission then. But for 15 years, nothing went on, and I felt very secure that the people we elected were watching over the township. You know, suddenly, you know, there's a lot of discussion about the amazing number of people in the township that are interested in 2.5-acre lots. I've not seen one of them show up at a Planning Commission meeting, and yet it's on the agenda. Those of us that have made significant investments and paid all the taxes necessary to keep this thing running for so many years and have enjoyed our 5-acre parcels are quite upset. You know? One commissioner got up and postulated about how wonderful it was he was going to stand up for the rights of the citizen and send a letter to Biltmore that maybe they could come up with a better plan. What is that? You know, we've had an active request to amend our master plan map for well over a year. You have spent $20,000 on it. And yet you can't come to the conclusion to say, no, Biltmore, we don't want to change our master plan. We continue to try and find some way to circumvent the zoning map and the zoning requirements. It's nice when you look at the website that most of you have your address listed on the website. The Planning Commission doesn't do that. And then there is wording in the charter or some of the documents that install that you're supposed to have some representation of all the areas in the township. I don't think there's anybody from my end of the township on the Planning Commission. I can't, it's really hard to find out people's address without looking like a stalker or something. I'm really disappointed in the direction the township's going. We moved here because we love this place. I raised my children here. They're moving away. I want to die here, but I don't want 28 neighbors to watch me. I just want the one neighbor that should be living next door on the same size parcel I had to buy. You have a 460-acre gem, something to be bartered with. It's called Ann Arbor Public Schools. And it's a shame that it's in Northfield Township. But you'll get much more taxable value with 16 5-acre homes at the corner of Joy and Whitmore Lake than 320 quarter-acre homes. So that's my comment. I hope there'll be something done about this bylaws business because it's way out of hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Jim Mulcrone, 366 Glenmore Drive. It's come to my attention that there's been more discussion about doing another survey of the township. First of all, I want to reiterate that looking at the results of the 2 previous existing surveys, that they're very consistent, that the attitudes are strongly held and longly held. And so I think there's a consistency there that supports the direction that the township should take and the support for the master plan. Second point I want to make has to do with geography, and there's been some discussion in previous times that I've been here about whether geographic location of where the person lives would affect their results, and we need to do something with, to track where people live. The way to normalize data from a study like that would be to weight the results for people downtown and in the hamlet area against people that live in the outer area. We might assume or hypothesize that people who live in the hamlet and the downtown area would support the changing of the master plan to support more dense development, while the people in the rural area might be in support of the existing master plan for 5 acres. If we were to weight the results, I'm going to guess that about 2/3 of the people live in the downtown or the hamlet area, and about 1/3 live in the outer area. So you would weight the rural areas more and the downtown areas and the hamlet less. So if the results were in the direction that we would hypothesize, that would exacerbate the difference between people who support a more dense development and people who support the existing master plan. So I just want to make that point about that and reiterate that I'm not sure we have a need for another survey.
Great. Thank you for your time tonight. Anyone else? All right. Moving on to correspondence and announcements. Anything? Anyone?
I have a few things.
Great.
One is Northfield Human Services is doing, again, their Adopt a Family program. I've got some information on it here if anybody is interested. Let me know. I won't go ahead and read it, but I've got it here just to let you know we do the Adopt a Family. I know Margaret Rydell works really hard at that.
I did want to let you know, Howard, that the Evening Kiwanis did approve to support the dinner with Santa,
Oh, fantastic.
and they will sponsor the reindeer.
Oh, that's great. So the Dinner with Santa and the Reindeer is a community center event that last year was highly successful, lots of people. So yeah, thank you. Tammy thanks you, I'm sure. The other thing is not in response to the resident in the audience. I was actually going to talk about this regardless. We are now aware, obviously, as it's been brought up and as you are all have already been aware, there is an ordinance on the books. We did not know about this ordinance. It didn't come to our attention until actually a resident brought it to my attention. We are in, it is a bond indebtedness ordinance requiring a postcard to be sent out to all taxpayers. We are working in compliance with that ordinance. I've already authorized that postcard to go out. I can certainly print out language or even send the board language if you want as to what that language is, and I could probably have that printed before the meeting is out tonight if you wanted that. Again, it's something that we scrambled to comply with because we didn't know about it, frankly. So very shortly, the entire community will be receiving a postcard indicating that there will be a bond over and above the $250,000 threshold, and with the full faith and credit of the township. I can take any questions on that if the board has it. I know we don't really have counsel, bond counsel here or financial advisors here, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any questions on that particular topic.
So the postcard, will it have a opportunity for public comment? I mean, is it just saying to people, this is what we're doing and that's the end of the story? Or is it to notify people? I guess the point of the ordinance would be to gather public opinion on it.
So it's clear that the ordinance does not preclude the board from authorizing any debt. So, for example, if, according to my reading of the ordinance, and I believe council as well, although I don't want to speak for council, I would think that would be more of a Steve and a Paul question. But they don't believe that it precludes the board from issuing the debt and selling the bonds. That being said, the next vote of the Whitmore Lake SAD is December the 8th. And so we are indicating on the postcard that the next vote for the SAD project is December the 8th. Do know that the board has already authorized the roll to be spread. The vote on the 8th is to authorize sale of the bonds. So I suppose theoretically, if that was denied, I suppose it's possible to go backwards. But the board has already authorized the spreading of the roll. But I guess to answer your question, tried not to beat around the bush, but to answer your question, yeah, I mean, we're indicating that the next vote is December the 8th.
So could there be wording on the postcard that would welcome the public to come to speak if they wish to?
Yeah, I mean, the
Okay.
postcard, I will get you the wording of the postcard before the end of the night.
Because what would be the point otherwise of the postcard? Just to kind of say to people,
That's
this
what
is
the
what
ordinance
we're doing
says.
and it's none of your business, but we're letting you know anyway?
No, not at all, not at all,
I mean,
Treasurer.
what is the point then of the
The
postcard?
point is to create notice of the taxpayers that we are having a bond and that there's going to be a public.
If the taxpayers have no say-so in it.
There's going to be a public hearing on the 8th. So that's what the notice indicates.
It is going to say public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, Wayne, please.
If you ask for an opinion from the attorney, Howard, I would like to, anytime you get an opinion from an attorney, I would like to have copies of that.
There's no written opinion from the attorney, Mr. Dockett.
Well, I thought you said you were going to ask.
I ask the attorney opinions all the time. There's a difference between an opinion as opposed to a legal written opinion. It's a very, very big difference. Anytime the attorney provides a legal written opinion, it goes to the Board of Trustees.
Well, maybe we need more of them.
Well, I mean, Mr. Dockett, that's just the way it's the way the government functions,
No,
unfortunately.
that's the way your government functions.
Mr. Dockett, I'm not gonna argue with you
All I'm
tonight.
saying is, when you get a legal opinion, I don't like you to just pop off and, oh, this is what they told me. No, I'd like to see the legal opinion. I don't think that's asking too much.
You can always call Paul's office direct, if you want, instead of having to write a legal opinion.
No, but if Howard's asking for a legal opinion and he's using it, then I think we should get it.
Right, well, he's conveying what he's received verbally. Do you have anything
That's not good
else?
enough. I don't think that's good enough. If it's legal opinion, I want a copy of it.
I think that's further discussion at another time. Can we stay on track for what you got? You know, the question at hand, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Well, you didn't ask me if I was finished. Thank you.
Yeah, Wayne, I don't want to get into it tonight. I'm turning my head
I
and
mean,
checking
I think
to
I
see.
have a right to an opinion, you know.
I have
and
not.
I don't think
I
that-
have not
I
moved
don't
on.
think it's yours.
I was asking Howard if he was done.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Wayne?
Yes, what I
We are on
stated.
correspondence and announcements.
What I stated. Howard said
I know
he's
you.
got
I know what
none.
you've said. Do you have anything new to say?
No, I want to know about that.
Okay, so you're done. Okay? Anyone else for correspondence and announcements? Thank you. Takes us on to our first discussion item, is the audit presentation.
I'm going to excuse myself for a quick second and go get the wording of that postcard.
Thank you, Howard.
So that the board has it, and get a few more things down there as well.
All right. Well, I would first like to say thanks to the board for having us as your independent auditors. I'm here tonight to discuss the audit for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2015. And as far as auditors go, one of the most important things is the staff and all the help we get. And I can't start without saying thank you for that. The internal staff does a great job. We appreciate, the help that we get from Howard during the audit. He answers many questions, explains policies, and we have seen improvements in the internal operations in the offices. When we go into the treasurer's office, it's very important that we find that taxes are collected properly, dispersed timely, and investments are made so that they are safe. And we're happy to report that, so that's very important from the internal auditor standpoint. The other item has to do with the accounting, and Rick Yeager did a great job again this year. What's very important, just so you understand, when we come in to do the audit and we're testing different accounts and looking at different things, we sometimes propose adjustments to the financials or to the reports. We can't make them, but we just say we believe this should be made. We had very few of those that we would propose. And why that's important to you as a board is when you're getting financial reports and you compare them to budget, you want to know that what you're looking at is accurate. And that's probably one of the most important things, for the board when you're looking at your financials during the year. You'll have your current operations, then you have your budget to actual, and you'll see where you're at with that. So again, that's very important. With that said, I'm pleased to report that we are issuing the highest opinion that the independent auditor can issue. It's called an unqualified opinion. And again, I just want to clarify, these are your financial statements, and we just come in and we are issuing an opinion on the financial statements. We theoretically, they're not our financial statements of the township, so we just always like to clarify that. We're issuing an opinion on them. I would like to then go on to just discuss a few items regarding the financial condition of the township. And again,
Are you working off in something there?
no, it's just my notes.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
Okay,
I'll get to
I just
that's
wondered
okay.
if I'm trying.
That's all right, Wayne.
I'm trying to follow.
I'm sorry, I don't want to go too, I'll slow down too. So with that, we also look at the financial condition. And when you're sitting there as a board, you got a lot of decisions to make, and sometimes that information's there and you do understand it. But then if we come in and we audit it, and what I can do is give you maybe a clarity to that. And the good news is in the three major funds and the sewer also, but with the general fund and the fire and police, which are all very important funds of the township, you're able to maintain the fund balance. So again, the fund balance didn't go down, didn't go way up, and that's good considering, again, we're still coming out of a recession as far as property values still are down, revenues are still down some. Obviously, there's more building in the township, so that you do have a little bit more there, but basically you're still we're still working out of that recession. So the good news is you were able to stay within budget and maintain your fund balance. So that's very important. I just wanted to also mention, and sometimes this gets lost, again, not only by obviously, the residents of the township don't understand it totally, but also from the board standpoint. And in the report is the graphs. And there's just the first graph I'm going to talk about. This is very important because when you look at this graph, you'll see that the total revenues in the general fund were $1,252,000. And really only 20% of that, which is $256,000, comes from taxes. As you can see by the blue, most of that comes from state shared revenues, from sales tax, use tax, other taxes. And so again, those are taxes that are shared amongst the state, amongst units that are very important. The reason why I'm also mentioning that too is there were times when, you know, as Michigan has gone through tougher times, they were talking about cutting those funds, and so there was some question about how that would be in the future. It seems to have settled off where we shouldn't have to worry about getting those state shared revenues in the blue, that, you know, that should stay steady. But I just wanted to, you know, again, clarify, you know, not only to the board but to the residents that, you know, again, as an example, the general fund, the total actual taxes are only $256,000 or 20% of your total budget. So with that, I'll just open it up for any questions that the board might have tonight.
Wayne, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
Okay.
I don't understand most of this, except we got several pages after the meeting started here. I don't like that because,
You got one page, Mr. Dockett.
well,
And the
I just got
new
another
folder
page
that's on
here.
your,
I just got another page of that. I got this when I sat down. It's very difficult to follow this stuff when.
I would be glad to, Wayne, too, sometime come back and meet you here at the township and go through any of that stuff with you. When I'm in there doing the audit, I do notice that, you know, you're active, you come into the offices, and just, you know, tap me on the shoulder or call me. I'll meet you out here anytime, though.
all right. Janet, did you have something?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, really, we're in good condition. Is there any areas of concern?
None at all.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
I would ask that tonight, if you would approve the audit, so I can submit it to the state of Michigan. It's always important that it goes in timely. For instance, if you should, you know, because of a snowstorm, not have a December meeting or something, then if you approve it tonight, we can get it into the state.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Did anyone have any questions before you?
I just had a comment.
Jackie.
I think when we started, 2.5 years ago, in comparison to where we are today, it is a very large improvement.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. And, you know, kudos to the people, kudos to Kathy and those in the township.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions, Tracy? Anything? Howard? No? Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the report on audit of financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2015.
I'll support.
Braun motion and Otto supported. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Our next order of business is number 2, the sewer billing process.
So Angie is not here tonight. This is her department, but certainly take any questions if you have them.
Wayne, are you the one, did you have questions on this one?
Yeah. Well, I had some statements to make here. I think it was, could have been handled a little better. I'm reading this, Howard says that there was a few billing oversights. Well,
Mr. Dockett, can you please speak up?
there were a few billing oversights. Excuse me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
there were some mistakes. Some mistakes do happen. I understand that. But when the township knew about the sewer billing mistakes, the township board should have been notified. The board and the management and the township attorney should have negotiated the settlement, not the Shell Station owner and Howard Fink, in my opinion. According to the minutes, we didn't get much from our attorney. According to the minutes of 10-10-15, under number 5, Shell Station outstanding sewer bill, Burns explained that the attorney for the Shell Station maintained there's a 2-year statute of limitations regarding the unpaid sewer bill. But I would have liked to have seen a opinion from Burns rather than for Burns to say that the Shell Station gas station, the gas station, their attorney, this is what their attorney said. I'd like to see something from him. I just hope that we can do this a little better next time. We voted for it, and then we voted against it, and we had to come back. I think if we would have all been on the page, and we would have talked about it in a workshop, we would have all known what was going on. I think it could have been handled a little better. Thank you. I hope in the future it is.
What's that?
I hope in the future that it is.
And Howard, I'll take this opportunity to thank you for all your hard work, and as I believe most of the board feels that we have directed you to please take care of these items, and appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
Any other?
I'm not saying Howard didn't do a good job, if that's what you're trying to say. I'm saying that I think we all could have been a little more involved.
Your statement sounded like you were diminishing Mr. Fink, so I wanted to clarify my feelings of him.
I would have liked to have seen something from our attorney when we asked the attorney that night here.
And if you remember, the first time he said he would...
He said that he does not like to answer questions in an open meeting. Well, you know, he works for us. I think that we could have gotten... I don't think it should have been rushed to the voting meeting. We should have had it talked about at the other meeting where we discuss or have a discussion item rather than to just vote on something that we didn't know much about. Thank you.
Anyone else have anything for our subject of number 2, sewer billing process? All right, let's move on. Number 3, sewer capacity policy analysis. And we have Brian Rubel here in the audience this evening. Brian, you want to come on up? I know we've had this discussion before of you know, what we're doing, what we should be doing. Thank you for putting together all this. And I guess you want to have a presentation prepared or chat out loud, see what you got going on here?
So this is for the most part the big item on the agenda for tonight. So feel free to take as much time as you need. I mean, there are some interesting, important items. The US 23 project, the 8-mile bridge lighting, and the North Territorial bridge design, those probably could all wait. And the board's goals for the last year of their current term, that can certainly wait. And the Parks and Rec master plan, I mean, I don't know that everybody's had a chance to read the whole thing. So, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is take as much time on this as you need. This is really the big kind of critical policy issue that I think is facing this township. And I think it deserves a decent amount of discussion and debate. So I'll get started if that's okay, Brian.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you know, Brian and I and Tim have had numerous conversations on this issue, and so Brian provided this outline, which is a nice, concise outline. I think that the very first question is, number one, is what's the policy of the township? do we allow new connections or do we not? And then if we allow new connections, are we allowing new connections as a sort of management approach in the way that we have previously? Or are we moving to define a specific ultimate sewer service area, and then that becomes what, I mean, those are the policy questions in front of you. Brian can speak to it, but that's really, we really need to get at what the decision is.
All right.
And with that, I'm going to go downstairs and print something real quick. I'll be back.
Maybe I could pass out a little flow chart. I jotted down some notes from a phone call a colleague of mine had with Genoa Township, just on how they their sewer policies, I guess. And this might stem some conversation. So I'll just maybe start here. I can review it when it comes around.
Yeah.
Then I don't need to go downstairs.
I did ask, we started the conversation with Genoa Township about whether they have any of their sewer practices written down, either in an ordinance or some sort of a manual. And unfortunately, and this is the answer we keep coming up with everywhere, is things aren't really well documented, they're just implemented. But they explained their process to me, and so this is my interpretation of that phone call, was, you know, they have a land use plan which guides many of the policies within the township. Then they have elected to define a service area for their sewers. So they have a shaded area that's matched to the land use plan largely, and that's the area that will be provided sewer service. There's a few other things that go into that, like they look at soil types, even areas outside of the plan development, because soils that are very much clay in nature do not support septic systems very well. So that's a consideration on where to provide sewer service. They also look at like lakes and wetlands, features that they'd like to protect from pollution that might occur from a failed septic. And so that's another consideration that they use with sewer service. And from all those things, they make a map. That's where we want to provide sewer service in the future. And then after they've got that map, they do a little master planning effort, a little sewer master planning effort, where they look at kind of a network of sewers to serve that area and how much plant capacity they need to serve that area. And then they put cost opinions on that. And then the reason for those cost opinions is the last box, and that is once they know the cost to provide service, then they set their connection fees around those costs so that they start banking some fees away. So when they have to build those sewers above and the plant expansion above, they've got a pool of money to work from. I have another community that goes through these updates every 5 years. I never fully understood why they did it every 5 years. Genoa Township sent me a master planning guidebook from the state of Michigan, and that they call for that to be updated about every 5 years. So I think that's the genesis of why even a third community does those updates every 5 years. That's kind of a guidance document. And this process is dictated by planners, so I'm speaking way out of consulting engineering by going through all these with you. The consulting engineering comes in basically those last two boxes. We're defining the costs and so forth. So again, I'm not a planner. I can only speak to the engineering, but this is how it was verbalized to me on the telephone.
So is it your assumption that if there are new land uses in a certain area that wasn't originally defined in the sewer service area map, how did it appears what they do is the connection fee revisions go back to the person who wants to to do that. I mean, if it's a developer, if it's anybody that is not within the sewer system or sewer service area map, then it's the responsibility of whoever's coming in.
That's true. I don't know any community that's not the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this came late, and we're just given this, so I didn't get a chance to read this or anything. So, as far as I know, we do not have any, yeah, we know where our sewer lines are, but no detail on it showing how much capacity in one area that we're allotting for, or REUs, or anything. Do we have that?
Only the special assessment districts. The other parts of the community that were developed from developers or are older and were done in the 60s and 70s, that's not mapped anywhere. Yeah.
So we don't have exactly what we just roughly, Tim, you know probably what we have, but nowhere in paper can someone look to say what we have on a map or anything like that.
Not on a map, but your billing records are probably the closest you have to that.
Okay.
That type of a.
Well, and then would these maps that you're talking about talk about like different trunk line, like larger areas that, let's say, because when I look at our master plan, some of the like MDR, like there is
No trunk sewer.
Right, there,
Yeah.
and well, one, the sewer, but then also, I mean, that you'd have to permission to cross 3 different properties, so.
Right. That's not been planned out. Yeah, how you're going to serve your areas that are planned for growth, that has not been mapped out.
Okay. So I don't know, this is all new, I think, to all of us. So sorry if I talk a little out.
Yeah.
But is that something that the Planning Commission does, or do we do it together? Because I truly believe there needs to be a policy in place, and I think it's a great idea and would like to get something, on the books. But do we do it in conjunction? Do you guys? I don't know.
We haven't, at the planning commission level, done anything like that other
No,
than.
I think
but if
this
you're
is a
looking at-
township
Yeah,
level.
if you're looking at sewer planning on this printout, it actually states at number 1 that you meet with us and Mr. Hardesty, review the locations of likely development, and then and what you've got already, and then because you can't leapfrog it, you have to extend it. or
Well, and that's
expand
what
it.
I want to talk about this leapfrogging, that it doesn't match. When I look at those maps, and I'm not a developer or anything like that, but I would love a developer's, input sometime just to help us, because when they look at what we have as, where our sewers and where our MDR, that, will that ever happen? Or, how do they view that as?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Marilyn's trying to say is at least one of the properties that is master planned MDR would require leapfrogging in order for it to develop.
A large, right. So I'd like to, and as I said, I did not read this. This was just handed to me. So,
I think that the intent of being against leapfrogging is to say you don't want massive extensions of a sewer pipe on one end of the township and on the other end of the township in order to accommodate a development. But the question is the practical notions of leapfrogging ever really truly been defined? And the truth is they have not. And
Exactly.
even people that have been involved with the Planning Commission and involved in these conversations aren't clear as to what the true definition of leapfrogging is. Is it one parcel? Is it 2 parcels? Is it within a reasonable distance? And so, I agree with you, Marilyn, that we can't just say we're not going to leapfrog, because at least one very large property that's existingly zoned for quarter-acre development, quarter-acre housing as MDR, would require leapfrogging in order for it to develop.
Yeah, and that actually
and
came up-
easements across other people's properties.
It actually came up at the planning commission, and I asked the same question, was that what constitutes leapfrogging? What's the distance, that you have to consider before it's considered leapfrogging? And we never got an answer, so I don't know if we have to amend that part of the.
Can that be as part of your study that you're proposing, or some help on that? Where would we go for some help?
Well, I think before you look at even that question, the very first question that needs to be asked is, are you going to allow new connections? we have to attack this linearly. You have to have a policy of whether or not you're going to allow new connections or not.
But I think you have to understand what your infrastructure need is first, define that first. This whole capacity needs to be defined and needs to be understood before you can even answer the question, do we allow new connections?
We know what we
Right,
understand our capacity.
Okay, that's
We
what
did
I-
that, what, a year ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, the capacity evaluation
Yeah,
should
but
give you a good.
that you do have to have first.
Right,
I
which we
think what
had.
he's saying, I think this policy, and I think what you're trying to say is there has to be a policy in place. And I think the policy starts with, you have to have certain things in place before you're gonna agree on, are we gonna have a new connection fee? And I think that
No,
would answer your question.
I think
or
we're talking cross purposes. I'm not talking about fees. The very first question you have to ask yourself is, are you going to allow new connections? If you add up the capacity in North Territorial, and you add up the capacity in Green Oak, and you add up the existing capacity that the plant has going through it, theoretically you're tapped out. Right now.
Right now.
Okay. The question remains: you only have a plant. I don't think it's a good policy. I'm going to be on record. I don't think it's a good policy to say that you're tapped out and that there's a moratorium. I think that's a bad policy, but it's not my choice, and it could be your decision. It would be, I would recommend against it, but it could be that choice. The question then becomes, do you say at that point, we have a plant at 50% capacity, we're not going to allow any more connections to that plant until North Territorial or Green Oak Township build out? The question is, are we allowing new connections to the plant? That's the first thing. Then the second thing is, how do we allow those new connections to that plant? And just jump in, Brian, if I'm off.
You're right on my
because
train of
I'm
thought.
just trying to help the thought process here. The second question is, how do we allow those new connections? Do we allow those new connections as a sewer service area map? Do we take a look at our master plan, and do we draw a big square around the areas that we say that we want sewers to be available to development? Or do we say that we're not going to do that? We're going to go with the policy that we had in the past, which is, if you are adjacent to a sewer line, okay, then you have the ability to connect as long as the zoning is in place. And obviously, the cost is a whole separate issue, an important part of it, but it's a separate issue just for the moment. I'm not saying it's not an issue that needs to be addressed simultaneously. It just can't be addressed at this very moment. And then the question becomes, if you say that you want a sewer service area, or you just want to have the historic policy of, if you're next to the sewers, you're allowed to tap in, then the question becomes, what percentage and what allocation are you going to allow of the existing capacity that you already have? And when are you going to create that cutoff point? When is there going to be a break point where you say, we're not going to allow any more connections because we don't want to get ourselves into a situation where we're in trouble because Green Oak Township or North Territorial may build out and may want some of that capacity? That's the question for tonight. We need to have some conversation and debate on that issue. Brian, have I missed anything? Tim, have I missed anything?
Yeah, I like that idea. Can we, because this is such a big topic, so we want to just start with,
Are we allowing new connections? We have, if you look at the very first question, I think, if we want to break this down really simply, very first question, if you take our existing capacity, Tim, Brian, correct me if my numbers are wrong, 650,000 gallons of capacity in the existing plant. We start with a plant of 1.1 million MGD, million gallons per day. If we build an equalization basin, we can push it to 1.3. It's a possibility you could potentially go to 1.5, but it's really a 1.3 plant. You got 1.1. The existing flow into the plant is 650,000 gallons. The North Territorial average is 400,000 gallons. That's what's been allocated to the North Territorial SAD. The Green Oak Township is about 200,000 gallons. You add it all up together, you've got 1.25. which is greater than 1.1. So the question becomes, if a development comes forward that, and I want to be very clear, if a development comes forward with zoning, proper master plan, proper zoning, or that the plan commission says we want to make it happen, and the board ultimately says, you know, yes to a particular proposal, and it's next to a sewer line, are we allowing connections?
So I just want to make it clear, you are not just talking about residential, you're also, it could be business or
That is
commercial.
correct.
Absolutely, that's
Industry.
where my mind is. If we want to have businesses coming into the township, we have to have sewer capacity to handle that, so I say yes.
I think that's an easy question for me, and that is definitely yes. You know, I don't know how you want to handle this. That you do we want to see if there's a favor, you know, in favor to keep this discussion talking, or are we just that, you know, we talk about this, then get to the next level, talk about, you know, how do we want to go along with this?
So my thought process is that I don't know if we could just say yes in general. What are we saying yes to? Are we saying yes to the whole thing, or are we saying that it has to be defined?
You're saying
You're
yes,
just
and
saying-
then it has to be defined.
Okay.
My thought,
You're saying you have to make a choice. You have to make a choice between, I'm sorry, Janet, I apologize. Hold your thought. You have to make a choice between you're in a moratorium, you're not in a moratorium. That's the clear choice at this very moment. You're either tapped out or you're not tapped out. That's a policy analysis. It's a policy decision.
Everybody understands that we're not talking about actually being tapped out, that we're talking about future commitments that
Right.
currently do not exist.
Correct.
Okay.
And
But as we, you know,
truthfully, I've talked to Brian about this. We're not sure that we know of very many communities anywhere. Brian doesn't know of any communities, from what he said, that if you added up all of the supposed, if you took all the zoning and all the SADs and you added it all up, I don't know that there's any community out there that would have that much capacity. You don't build a sewer plant and say, we're going to build a sewer plant for the giant square. Okay? If this is the square of the township, okay, you don't build a sewer plant assuming that at some point in the future you're going to have 150,000 residents.
right, it grows as you
It
grow.
grows as you grow, and you manage that capacity over time. Okay? So, but because this has been a debate, and because this question has arisen, and because it's out there, we need to answer it. And that is, if you say that you want to preserve that North Territorial capacity, and you want to preserve that Green Oak Township capacity, and you don't ever want to take the risk that you're not going to have capacity,
okay, I don't ever want to say no to a business, a good business that's good for the township because we don't have capacity. We do have capacity, but at the same time, I think the other half of the equation is if you're allowing someone to come in and use that money, or use that use that might be obligated somewhere else, then we have to have a policy in place to start building so that when
Correct, yeah.
yes. we have
Yeah,
to have a
absolutely. That's,
fund or
that's
something,
how we got started on all this, of how much is that? And so the kitty can start growing.
And that's what I was talking about defined, is that we're just not going to say yes in general, but there has to be something that goes with it.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, and I like, you know, because if we just say no, well, then any of your MDRs or anything are never coming. Correct, because that's not in the equation of your capacity.
That's right. Yeah.
So if we say no, then the township is what it is today, and, you know, the businesses won't ever come because the people aren't here. You know, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, the
Well-
decision would be to expand the plant after 500 or 600 new connections.
Correct, right.
You'd need to make that commitment.
And this study that you're proposing, that would do all that, right?
We did that before, actually. That was the capacity inventory. The additional services that we spoke about and are in this proposal would be to update a cost for the plant expansion.
That's what I meant.
We did one in 2005. It's been 10 years since that was updated, so it would be to bring that to today's dollars, or 2016 dollars perhaps.
And we are pretty far away from a plant expansion, in my opinion.
I think.
Okay, guys, don't think that please, I don't want the message out into the community. It's important that we have the updated information, till we understand the cost, so whether it's this board or future boards, we make good decisions. We are not even near close to a plant expansion. That's not the reason why we're asking for those numbers. So.
But it would be a good exercise to go through in the event that you want to do capital improvement.
Absolutely.
And you know what to reserve towards.
There's no question.
Okay.
Right, and or anyone else coming in new, well, what are their costs to cut, if they're gonna touch it, then, new stuff is at a premium dollar, and,
Right.
so we can bank it and get ready.
Yeah, we can't answer that right now without that information.
Right.
And probably the more important cost opinion, the more important cost opinion other than a wastewater treatment plant expansion, because I really do believe, I'm saying this with honest integrity, I truly believe you're really, really far away from a plant expansion. And the more important look at this equation is what are the costs for various trunk lines? So let's say, for example, somebody wants to come and look at the Leland property for development, okay? Seems like we're all in agreement. Seems like there's general community consensus that that is a property that is supported for development, subdivision housing. I'm not trying to go out there and promote subdivision housing development, but let's say that we get that request, and we've had a few people that have looked and asked questions. Okay. In order for us to figure out what the answer on this Leland property is, we have to do an analysis of the pipe that takes the waste from this general area and brings it up to the plant. Okay? And in order to do that analysis, that's what Brian is talking about, the trunk lines. But that analysis exists not only for this property, which is properly zoned, or I shouldn't say properly zoned, properly master planned, but that analysis exists for this property over here. That analysis exists for this property over here. And that analysis exists in general for, and also for the not Donald Lane, but the farm right behind us. Huh? Kelly property. But it not only exists for those properties, it exists for any property that the Planning Commission ultimately changes in terms of master plan. I mean, let's say 5 or 10 years from now, they identify this property here as being a property that they would like to see more intense development. We need to understand what the capacity is in the lines. Because remember, it's not just a plant capacity issue, it's a conveyance capacity issue.
And not only would this, just that it seems like no one seems to know anything that we've learned a lot over the last few years just on our sewer studies and things that a lot of this has been kicked down the road. And I think it would be very difficult for anyone coming in to, let's use it, a developer for the Leland property. They don't know the cost, do they?
Right.
So they can't make an offer on a property when they have no idea what the sewer is going to be.
And they ask us those questions, and neither Howard nor I know the cost either, so.
We can't answer the question.
Right. So I think it's critical that this does get taken care of, and I'm in all favor of you doing the report. Go ahead, Wayne.
Why can't we answer? Why can't we answer? Why can't we answer the question? 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 Why can't we what size the pipe's gonna be. We don't know what size the pump's gonna be. We don't know a lot of things, so.
We can't even tell them what the line is all the way to the plant at this point, correct?
Right now, we can't answer the question because
That's what I'm saying.
you haven't made the decision as to whether or not you're allowing new connections. So the very first question that you have to answer is, are you allowing new connections? If you're allowing new connections, then we can get to, okay, what's a number of new connections? What's the percentage of new connections? What are we dealing with as staff, as consultants? What do we have to manage? Okay? And then let's just assume that the Leland property, whether or not, the Leland property is a good example, because the Leland property, if you were to have an ultimate sewer service map, if you were to say that this is the sewer service map, okay? The Leland property is going to be in that sewer service map, and it's going to be adjacent to a sewer line. So it's going to be both. It's going to be in the realm of development with connection to the sewer, whether you're in either policy. Whether you're the historic, if you're next to a sewer, you can connect, or if you're in a sewer service area map, you can connect. It's going to be there. Okay? So now the question becomes, can we allow the connections? And what number of connections has the township indicated that they want to allow in order to say that the development is possible? And I'm not saying you have to answer that question tonight, but at some point we need to have some direction.
So are you looking at something to say that it should be a percentage of what we have allocated?
Well, I think...
Or not to exceed type thing?
What I would do is I would look to Mr. Rubel to help you come up with what is a formula that is good scientifically, good from the perspective of peak flow, all of those kind of things, what that formula would be.
Okay.
What percentage it would be.
Okay.
And how that would look without an equalization basin, how it would look with an equalization basin. Because remember, the equalization basin is not about growth. It's not about expansion. It's about dealing with the commitments that we have out there today.
I'd like to make it clear that we're not, I mean, in my little mind, we're not talking about the project. We're talking about, you know, the pipe is only so big, the pumps are only so big. So if you're going to have a lot of development somewhere, the capacity for the pumps and the pipes are not right either. So
Right, your study will say what is there, so everyone knows what is there, and if they wanted to improve it, they could, correct?
Yeah, I would advocate maybe starting with your land use plan as a foundation. See the yellow area. How does that project? What are the trunk lines needed for that? That's the place, in my opinion, to start, and we can either add or subtract from that depending on the results. Yeah, the bright. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll figure that out.
Okay, but would that then be considered our ultimate service area?
I think that's only if you adopt that. I mean, it would just be
Okay.
planning level at this point.
I guess I needed to understand what you meant by that, because I think that we do have areas that we've identified in there that are sewer areas.
That's the misconception.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what
That's
I
what I
wanted.
believed when I got here. That's what a lot of us believed.
Okay,
All that delineation means is that there's sewer there.
okay.
That's all it means. The historical policy has been, if you're next to the sewer, you can connect. As you see,
And never a cap on how many, right?
and never a cap on how many.
So one person could take all of it.
there was caps at certain times but not in recent history, yes.
So going back, again, help me, because I wasn't here, but going back 15 years, when these two subdivisions were built, there was nothing that said they were in the sewer district. They were just next to the sewers.
Okay.
And so the township had a policy, if you're adjacent to a sewer, close enough, essentially, you're allowed to connect. And they allowed the connection, and that's what happened. There is no theoretical map, a box that's drawn around that says that's your ultimate sewer service area and you're never going to go beyond that sewer service area. If you were to draw that map, this big square, and you're saying to yourself you're never going to go beyond that sewer service area, you still have all the other issues that you have to deal with. I mean, you still have to deal with what percentage of the capacity that you have that you're going to use, but it's just a different policy.
Some communities do draw that box. I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. It's just, I don't think you have that box.
So, this might have been answered before, and maybe I don't remember, but the capacity that we've obligated to with Green Oak, is it to a certain area, or is it just that they can use it wherever and whenever they want to?
No, the agreement does define a service area and a capacity both.
What's the geographic service area?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's around M30.
And there's a little bit. It's mostly M36.
It's mostly M36. There is a little bit left over from the original allocation. Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a little bit left over from the original allocation around the northern part of the lake, but very little. I mean, we're talking about a house here and a house there. In terms of how we measure this stuff, it does not show up on it doesn't show up on a graph.
So do we know what their land use is for that area? I mean, if they're not going to be doing anything with it for
Their land use, I think, is mostly commercial industrial in that area, right, Tim? Yeah.
What kind of capacity did we used to have on Maxi that we don't have anymore? Do you have any idea on that? They're completely closed down on the.
They're not completely
closed on the south side, aren't they?
They're completely closed down on the north side.
On the north side?
On the north side.
Oh.
They still have adult males in there in one building now on the south side. There's no more juveniles in there. It's all adults now.
I mean, it's considerably less than what it has been in the past.
Considerably, yes. Yeah, at one time, I believe 30 years ago, they had 2,000 kids in there.
Yeah.
And I believe they're down to about 250
Okay.
prisoners plus about that many workers.
Okay. So our capacity is down considerably.
Yes,
for
sir.
that area.
For that area.
Unless something happens we don't know about. Thank you.
In your study that you want to do, you're going to match it with the land use and stuff like that, or
That'd be, I would like to do it that way, yes.
okay. And then, will you also put some points on the soil conditions, environmental, or anything like that, or is that just going to get all mixed in with the land use?
I think the latter. I think it'll go hand in hand.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me see. Is this helpful for the when you guys redo the master plan revision, or when you look at it every 5 years? I don't know the correct name. What is it?
The master plan revision.
Revision,
Or amendment,
okay.
or just a review.
So, like, I would imagine would this be helpful for the planning commission, that when they see where
I would think so. I'm seeing Mr. Thomas nod his head. He was on the planning commission, I believe. So.
Mr. Thomas would have loved to have this
Yeah.
information when he was on the planning commission.
We basically had what we've seen most recently is just like the district, the outline.
because your revision is coming up, isn't it? Like starting on it next year? Or?
After the survey, we're going to be looking at it, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, I think it's wonderful. How fast can you get it done?
It'd be this winter. It'd be
Okay.
done this winter. Yeah.
When we talk about all this, I mean, like you mentioned, other communities have a policy that it's every 5 years that this is reviewed, just kind of like everything else, master plan.
Right.
Can this be something that we put in our ordinances, though? So no one has to, another board doesn't ever have to go through years of figuring out what we have, what we've gone through, and to re-educate all the time. That he said most communities update their sewer map. Are they? What do you call it? A sewer map?
I'm not saying most, but many do.
Many do.
Every 5 years or so, as the master plan changes, they take a look at the sewer infrastructure.
Yeah, I agree. But we're a little bit behind. So I would agree that most communities kind of do upgrade their sewer master plan every 5 years. I think that's what you're referring to.
Many.
Yeah. Many, not most.
I'd say that's correct.
I wouldn't even say it's majority.
I think that's right.
Yes. But I think that you should set a policy of doing that. The problem is we're not ready to have a sewer master plan because this is all of the stuff that are sections of the sewer master plan. And because we're sort of coming at this from a different level of information and knowledge, we're sort of building up to the point where we actually do have, maybe when this is all said and done, we have what resembles a sewer master plan. It's not going to actually be a document that looks like a master plan in the way that the Planning Commission has and in the way the Parks and Rec has. But if you put all these various plans together and you take the information in totality, you'll essentially have it. And then I do agree that you ought to via ordinance or would be a resolution, you ought to say that you support future boards to take a look at this every 5 years from a planning perspective.
And then, I don't know if this is part of this conversation or not. I wanted to talk about possibly a discussion on our current ordinance that requires anyone to hook up to sewer immediately when the sewer line comes. Many communities just say that when your septic fails, that is when you have to hook up. Anyone want to, is that part of tonight, or is that a whole other thing?
We didn't plan on it being for part of tonight, but we do know that it's an issue, and we do know that it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed soon, because we do have the Whitmore Lake SAD. And so shortly, that is going to be an issue that needs to be addressed.
Can we have it on our next board meeting to discuss?
You want next workshop?
Yeah.
Sure.
Next workshop's not until
I mean, we can discuss it tonight. I mean, it's not.
Can we just get through this
Yeah.
first, and then take that all in steps, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
So where are we here today? Where are we going?
I think you need a consensus, I think, to move forward with whether or not we want to allow connections. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so how do we get that? Are we polling?
I mean, it can be a vote at the next meeting. We could create a policy for you. Brian, do you have any suggestions about process-wise? Brad, do you have any, or Paul, do you have any suggestions? You're better looking than Paul.
It's kind of you to say.
Oh. I mean, that's the basic policy question. Am I
agree. It is the basic policy question. Certainly, we could work with you to craft a resolution or something of that nature. I think as formal as an ordinance is probably a bit much, but I think certainly a resolution or motion of the board is what you'd be looking for.
And then, do you guys want to let this idea of having a sewer service map versus just the historical policy of if you're next to the sewer, you can connect, kind of sit with you guys for a little while and kind of think about that? And then either of those solutions, maybe Brian, Tim, and I can sit down and try to figure out sort of scientifically what that percentage would be that we might recommend so that you don't put yourself in a position where you've allocated too much capacity and you get into a liability.
So a couple of questions that I have, because that was one of my concerns too, is then we have too big of a service area that we created and it's not feasible. But the other question I had is if a township or city or whoever uses a service area that they define, do they usually define it within the zoning of that? Do they combine it with that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's exactly the same because of the environmental type features. Like you might want large lots next to a lake to be connected to the sewer, for instance.
Okay.
So it's close to the land use planning, but there are some additional thought put into it.
Okay.
So if you're going to, you said keep the policy or return to the policy if you're adjacent to or right next to the sewer area, you can just extend it. Is that what you're saying? To automatically extend it to use it? Okay. So then when are you defining adjacent as being right next door? And if you're going to not do that, then you have to take the leapfrog thing out of the planning commission, the ordinance, so.
Yeah,
it's.
I can tell you that this parcel right here, okay? This parcel right here that's zoned for MDR would violate your leapfrog ordinance if it was built.
So that should go back to the planning commission then if we want to change that, correct? Isn't that it's an ordinance.
I would think that you would have to go back to the planning commission to correct that ordinance or correct that zoning. So
You're asking me very, very big policy issues that it's not relevant what my opinion is.
Okay.
It's what your guys' opinion is.
Well, that's what I mean. If you're not allowing leapfrog, then you would have to correct it.
If that's what if you
right,
want to allow it,
right.
Yeah.
What are we?
That's what I'm saying.
I'll bring it up.
Let me say this. I think that the reason why the leapfrogging ordinance exists is to protect, was probably identified to protect the rural areas of the community from sewer expansion, and it was also probably identified to not create massive infrastructure over long stretches that is unsustainable. I personally don't think that any of that is relevant in this sort of general section here. And so I guess while it's not, while it's not my role to make that policy, my question would be, what if you had a parcel here, that wanted to, develop, and the Planning Commission looked at that as an MDR piece, or obviously it's not master planned as MDR, but remaster planned it as MDR, or remaster planned it for something else, remaster planned it for commercial, or whatever the case may be. You get yourself into a situation of, what is the definition of leapfrogging? Where was the sewer when they connected to Wildwood? Was it next to it?
No, it was quite a ways away.
So, if you look at the subdivision of Wildwood subdivision, it probably didn't conform with the leapfrogging ordinance. There's some conflicting policies that are going on here that are really hard to kind of address, and a lot of times these things sort of do get addressed at a staff level, and then they go up to the Planning Commission and the board, but I think it's most appropriate for this community to address them head on and ask the question of how you guys want to deal.
Isn't maybe what we're really searching for, isn't it really a series of a number of what if questions? Isn't it really assume that everything that's not developed but is denoted MDR does develop at blank level of density, and that X can be changed to X plus or X minus, and there are different hypotheticals, and it's a different analysis if it's X minus, and if it's a different analysis if it's X plus. Then the second what if is, What if there was more MDR that developed at a certain point at a given level of density? Isn't that really what we're trying to do, rather than making it so general that it just kind of devolves? I mean, that, to me, there would be real value in assuming this land use plan, assuming differing levels of proposed development. What does that mean from a capacity standpoint right now, and what does that mean to cost?
Yeah, those could be answered. Once you do one, it's not a whole lot more effort to do the permutations.
And that's really what we want. Is we want to be able to have the framework to be able to plug in those values and manipulate those values to see what the results are.
Got it.
So, can I just have a question? I don't know if it's unrelated to sewer or not, but do we have a geological survey of the entire township? I know a lot of it are, I've been told, is clay anyway.
Yeah, that information is published. It would not surprise me a bit to find out that 99% of it is clay. Yeah.
Brian, how comfortable, because I think from the board's perspective, it's sort of difficult to sort of identify what that policy is and what that number would be. How comfortable would you be as part of the analysis of the trunk lines, knowing what we have in terms of the analysis on the capacity, to potentially back into a recommendation of what that policy might look like from a percentage perspective?
Yeah, those are numbers. That's easy to, I mean, that's in the realm of engineering.
Assuming that the board makes the choice to allow for new connections.
Yeah, that's, I'm very comfortable working through that answer.
So maybe the best way to approach this is to, if you guys want to move forward with it, if you want to move forward with Brian's sort of study on the sort of trunk line and looking at what the cost is of a plant expansion. Again, I want to be on record, we're really, really far away from a plant expansion. We're just looking at it from a future cost perspective number so that we do understand what a sewer usage connection fee would be. What did we call it?
System development charge.
System development charge. And as part of that, for Brian to come up with a recommendation to you all on, you know, what that percentage might be, and maybe even we can break it down into a sort of conservative, moderate, risky sort of approach, and look at those numbers.
The question, probably, I don't know how related it is. A while back, Tim came and made a presentation, and it was mandated by either the state or the federal government that I think it was a capital improvement plan was actually mandated. And so did we voted to do that? I mean, does that overlap with this? Is that different than this? What was it?
Yeah, I would say that the asset management plan is more of optimizing the current assets that you have and ensuring that they are well taken care of and replaced in a timely manner, whereas the discussion up to now is more new infrastructure. That's a great question, though. Yeah.
Right. How
Yeah.
long will the pipe last?
Yeah.
The pipe's going to last 20 years. Yep. Good question. So, does that kind of get us to where we want to end tonight for sewer capacity policy?
Yeah, you know, do you want a formal vote for yes, you know, because if we're going to say no to no new connections, then I don't think we need to.
Well, if we're saying no to no new connections,
We don't need. Right, yeah, thank you, Brian.
That's exactly.
Right, but I think what he wants to know, I think by asking them to draft a resolution, you're actually telling them yes.
Okay, well then, do you need an approval on your proposal?
Before I start, I would like an approval, yes.
You can do it tonight, you can wait for 2 weeks.
I am comfortable with doing it tonight. I don't know about anyone else. If
Tim, any reservations?
This may just take a budget change for me, is all.
Yes.
There are actually two proposals there that got stapled together, I think. One was to help with the trunk lines, and another was just to help Howard and Tim with some things that come up. Perhaps writing this policy might be one of those things.
Yeah, let me address that, because I think it's best that I address that rather than Brian sort of advocate for that. So let me back up for a second. Over the last 2.5 years, Brian has come to a lot of the meetings, presented a lot of proposals. You have authorized a number of studies, probably 3 or 4, since I've been here. Historically, that's not actually the way it works. Okay? Historically, the way these kind of communities work, and I think we're getting to the point where we are at a place where we're sort of complicated enough, we have a large enough infrastructure in terms of sewer plants. You usually have an engineer that is considered a sort of staff consultant engineer. I mean, I'm not saying we go out and hire an engineer. That is reserved for much larger communities. But you usually have somebody who's on retainer as a sort of staff consultant engineer. That is not Brian. Okay, Brian is not. Tim and I call Brian all the time. Okay, and we appreciate Brian's generosity of his time to allow us to do that. But the reality is that Brian is not under any retainer. And so, you know, Brian works off of these studies that you guys work on. We think of Brian as this sort of staff consultant engineer, but that's really not how he's contracted to the township. That's the reality of it. I mean, Paul Burns' office, Brad and Paul, are staff consultant attorneys, okay? We don't, every time we call Brad and Paul, they're not adding it up and getting a separate bill. There's a retainer relationship and so on and so forth. So what I'm suggesting that you do is that there's a separate contract that's there. We don't have to deal with it tonight. But I'm suggesting that you put Brian under retainer for a certain amount of money. That way he can act as a sort of consultant staff engineer. So that way when Tim and I do call Brian, he doesn't feel like every single time we call him, he's essentially working for free, because right now he's coming to this meeting giving you a lot of advice. There's no charge for any of this time that he's coming here. He's not billing that in any way.
So what would be your recommendation?
Well, I think he presented something of a $6,000 retainer.
Oh, I thought that would be a little low.
Yes, you've come to tons of meetings.
And the meetings, you know, for the most part, he doesn't charge
No.
because he sees it as
It's more,
part
yeah.
of his role.
But I do prep a lot for the meetings and make phone calls, and
So
it's that kind of stuff.
I would start with what he recommended, which is the $6,000, and see where it takes you. Again, it doesn't have to be done tonight. It's not a critical thing, but I think it's probably appropriate. And I know that I don't know the details of it, but I know that Tim and Brian had conversations about much of the things
Difficult for me to hear.
about technical aspects of it, of the plant and all of that. And so,
Did you want this portion of it on the next agenda, or is that something you want to act on tonight?
I'm willing to act on.
There's two, oh, okay.
I'm willing to do 2 motions if everyone else, unless I hear huge objections.
No.
All right.
and we'd have to do a budget amendment for that as well.
Do you need that part of your motion or no? I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out what we've got here.
But, okay, I just wanted to ask, you said determine the cost of the study would be $5,973? Is that what you were saying? Is that part of that 6,000 that we would be?
No, that's a separate subject.
Okay.
That has to do with the connection fee calculation that was done about a
Okay.
year and a half ago. Coincidental, those are the similar numbers.
So the planning, the sewer planning and cost opinion is the 17.9.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the second proposal is the 6,000,
it.
so.
Cool. Sorry about that. All right.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the sewer planning and wastewater treatment plant cost opinion study by Tetra-Tech and Brian Rubel for a total of $17,900.
Support.
Ingstrom motion, Chick supported. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
All right, thank you. Looking forward to the study. I'll also make another motion to approve sewer system as needed support by Tetra-Tech and Brian Rubel for a total of $6,000. Do we have a time on that, or is it
Well,
indefinitely?
It would go many months, I would hope. We'll use it till it's gone. It might be 6 months, it might be 12 months.
Might be 6 years.
It might be.
So how do you want me to end that motion then until all money is used?
Yeah, it's just a retainer.
It's a retainer for. I'm acting like she's serious.
It's not a retainer. It's just a pre-authorization.
Okay.
Right.
Ingstrom motioned and Braun supported. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Thank you, Brian, for all your work and looking forward to seeing these studies.
All right.
Do you need a motion for the budget amendment?
No, not right now. I don't have any of the details in front of me, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Should I go ahead?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm trying to clean up my mess here. That's number 4. So we're moving on to, do we want to do master plan tonight?
Yeah, no, I'll be quick.
Okay.
I'll be really quick. I mean, basically, you guys got to have the master plan, the Parks and Rec master plan. I encourage everybody to read it, take a look at it. We are in a public comment period, okay? We will have a public hearing on it, be an advertised public hearing. We'll take comments. We're going to try to get comments from as many people as possible, and then we will integrate those comments as appropriate into the master plan. We actually already had one comment at the last meeting. The Planning Commission's going to be hearing a new preserve park at the Planning Commission for the next Planning Commission, and the Parks and Rec had a sneak preview of it last week. So that might be revised in the Parks and Rec master plan to look at ways the Parks and Rec Commission can deal with that. That's essentially the Parks and Rec master plan, unless anybody wants to discuss it. Otherwise, we can just wait until everybody's taken a look at it and go from there. It's a 110-page document, so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank the people of the Parks and Rec and Tracy and Howard and everybody for all their hard work on it. It was a long time overdue and well needed.
So that's that. Parks and Rec Commission is already working on next steps, so they're going at it, and the board will have more information on what's coming out of that committee as it kind of comes forward, if you will. So that's it. That's for Parks and Rec Master Plan.
All right.
Oh, and if anybody wants a hard copy, let me know. Okay.
And then number 5, the US 23 project, the 8-mile bridge lighting.
So downstairs, I didn't bring them up, but downstairs there are a bunch of boards. And one of the things that, oh, it's also in your packet as well. One of the things that MDOT is proposing is decorative gateway lighting along the 8-mile bridge. And we can show it to you guys when you want to, if you walk downstairs after the meeting. I'll show you the board. They're indicating that they're willing to put in the decorative lighting and they're willing to install it. If we wanted to, we would have to be on the hook for the maintenance costs and the electrical costs over time. They were really hesitant to give us a number, and I said, you know, Paul Ajabar is the director there. I said, Paul, boards don't like to vote on things when they don't know what the number is. So give me a number. And the number they gave me was approximately $4,000 yearly. I can't guarantee that that's going to be the number. I can only say that that's the number that they gave. I certainly think it's a nice expenditure of the township dollars for decorative lighting over the 8-mile Gateway Bridge. Personally, that's ultimately your call. This is just, do you think that that's something that you want to look at? And if it is, one of the suggestions that was brought up was to look at LED lighting. I will ask about LED lighting, and maybe we can cut out the electrical costs. But if you're going to authorize it and you want to do it, we don't have to do it tonight. It would be at the next meeting. But if you're going to do it as though it would be normal electrical lighting. And then if it ends up being decorative LED, only better.
What would the maintenance be on that? Changing the bulbs?
Changing bulbs, yeah. And if the lighting goes bad, you know, we'd probably have to change out the lighting and whatnot.
Okay.
So.
I think it's a wonderful idea.
8-mile is phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. Well, I shouldn't. Don't thank me. Thank the designers at MDOT.
Yeah.
I was, you know, Mr. Wagner and I, we worked very hard to get some improvements on this project, and we probably got millions of dollars in additional improvements to the project. But the design of the bridge, but thank you. So that's that. Do you guys want that on the agenda? Decorative lighting? Got it. Okay. So the other thing is the North Territorial Bridge design. As it stands right now, North Territorial is slated for, let me just get my map out. That's 6 mile. 6 mile. The North Territorial Bridge construction is slated for widened shoulders, okay? And the question is, do you want sidewalks on the bridge, or do you want the full width of the widened shoulder? You know, I think great sidewalks are great, and I support, you know, non-motorized transportation. I just am not sure when that sidewalk will ever connect to another existing sidewalk. And so I worry that it's a sidewalk on a bridge that goes nowhere.
So would
That's
it be
my
like
worry.
It's not a bicycle path, it's an actual sidewalk?
No, it would be an actual sidewalk. It would be a raised sidewalk platform with a smaller shoulder because you've got a raised sidewalk platform. So do you want to keep the...
Technically, bicycles aren't even allowed on sidewalks, are they? I mean,
Yeah.
it would be for just walking, and the bikes would have to stay off the sidewalk. I mean, technically, that's the way it is. I mean,
6 mile...
On 6 mile, and I would say 6 miles more dangerous than it would be.
6 mile and 8 mile, they've slated 4 sidewalks.
Yeah, 6 mile I would say would be dangerous.
6 mile and 8 mile, they've slated for sidewalks because there is a decent amount of traffic that goes over that 6 mile bridge. And also at 8 mile, there's a lot of biking that goes on at 6 mile.
Yeah.
I see a lot of biking. Huh?
Just to get to the high school, maybe?
Yeah, well, I think coming from the south going into Whitmore Lake.
I think the bike path is different than a sidewalk.
the north end of the trailer park also uses 8 Mile.
Correct.
So talking about that, is this, are we gonna pick up the additional cost, or?
Well, so the sidewalks on the bridge, no. Okay? So I'm gonna get there in a second. So if you wanted to extend the sidewalks at 8 Mile, or you wanted to extend the sidewalks at 6 Mile, we would have to fit the cost. And so then my question. Huh?
They're only doing the bridge.
They're only doing the bridge.
Okay.
And they're asking you, do they want to stay with a widened shoulder on the North Territorial Bridge, or do they want to go with the sidewalks on the North Territorial Bridge?
I say shoulder.
And it does look like they're on the North Territorial, they're extending 5 Mile out more.
Correct.
They're taking from the road, from North Territorial, instead of from the next side.
Correct.
Okay.
That was the big improvement that we advocated. Yeah. So, any other consensus on North Territorial sidewalk or expanded shoulder? Okay. Seeming like consensus on the shoulder. Now the question becomes, on the 6 Mile and 8 Mile properties on the bridge, do you see a sidewalk? Do you want to get quotes? Do you want MDOT to give you cost analysis of sidewalks? Do we not want to even look at sidewalks at this moment? What side of the street would you want it to be on? Is this a longer conversation?
I don't see a lot of people walking over the bridge at 6 Mile. It's all vehicular traffic, especially with exit and entrance ramps. So.
Yeah, that whole area, like at Main Street and 6 Mile, there's a lot of accidents. And I know when we had, just on Saturday, when we had the snowstorm, they couldn't even get over the bridge. There was so much ice. The cars couldn't. So I.
Because it was an elevated, it was an incline.
It's gonna be a whole new bridge and everything.
Yeah, it probably would, but I mean, just because of the congestion of traffic that's in that area, I don't know. I'd be wary of having a walkway, any type of sidewalk in that area. It's just because I live there and I see it every day.
So, you're saying sidewalk, or literally nothing, or I'm a little confused on the 6 Mile.
Well, 6 Mile, if you want some type of bike path or something there, I'm not opposed to that.
Right. So what's the question from MDOT? Do we want it on the bridge, or?
No, the question from MDOT on 6 Mile has nothing to do with the bridge, because if you look at the 6 Mile cross section, all right. So I mean, you've got these cross sections in front of you. So if you go to the 6 Mile cross section, you see how they have the proposed 15-foot shared use lane. Then they have a 2-foot shoulder, and then a 5.5 or 5-foot 2-inch sidewalk, raised sidewalk. You see that? That's what they're building. So there's going to be a sidewalk on the 6 Mile bridge in case there is ever need for a sidewalk.
Okay.
6 Mile set. 8 Mile is the same thing as well. If you go to your cross section on 8 Mile, okay, you see the exact same design as 6 Mile. You see a 15-foot on either side shared use lane. You see a 2-foot shoulder, and then a 5-foot 2-inch sidewalk. Okay, and then at North Territorial, you have the option of repeating essentially what they've done in 6 Mile and 8 Mile, or you can stick with the widened shoulder.
Okay.
And the concern that I see is I don't ever see sidewalks along North Territorial. I think it's more realistic to see sidewalks, I'm not saying today, but I think it's more realistic to see sidewalks at 6 Mile and 8 Mile. But you know, you guys would know better than I would, because I've been here for 3 years, 2 years. You guys have been here much longer than I have. So you guys would know better.
I agree with you.
Can I ask a question? Was there ever any discussion, I didn't get to go to the last one for the MDOT meeting, about a roundabout at 6 Mile where the entrance and exit ramps are? Because there are days when you cannot turn left or right there. There's so much traffic.
There was only discussion of roundabouts at a staff level through MDOT. There was never public discussions at that
What
point.
about a light there or anything?
There will be a light there during construction, and I've already talked with MDOT about doing, about asking for a warrant study on that intersection, and I'm waiting for, I haven't actually been able to talk with Mr. Wagner about it yet, but I'm waiting for what's the best time to do a warrant study, because I want to do a warrant study when there's most amount of traffic, because they do agree that there needs to be a light there. And so what I basically said to MDOT is, please put a light there and don't take it away when construction ends.
Yeah, right.
There's probably enough traffic to warrant a roundabout during construction, but there's not enough traffic to warrant a roundabout after construction, and so.
It's only during the rush hours, or
Exactly.
school, when school lets out.
So yeah, that interchange is, or that intersection is on my mind, on my radar, excuse me.
On North Territorial, they have that parking area where people park their cars and everything. Have they thought about, I mean, I would really like to have that looking a lot nicer than what it is.
It's going away.
It's going away completely? Oh, okay.
It's going to be relocated,
Okay.
and they have not figured out where yet.
But they're relocated in 5 Mile.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it looks wonderful.
Could they relocate it on 6 Mile where the old gas station used to be?
Maybe. It's possible.
Do you need, you don't need motion or votes on this or anything, do you tonight? or-
No, I'm gonna put the lighting on the agenda because I'll need a vote on that. Do you all want me to ask for quotes on sidewalks on 6 Mile and 8 Mile, off the bridge, not on the bridge, but off and extending? No, okay. So then I don't, and you're all in agreement that North Territorial should be the widened shoulder. Yeah. All right, then we're good. That's the way it's designed. We're on to number 7.
Board goals for last year of current term. Hard to believe. What are you looking for? Did everyone kind of give ideas or what we?
Yeah, just some ideas. I mean, the sewer stuff is out there, and I think it's certainly critical to resolve, so that's certainly high on the list. But I wanted to get everybody's sense as to, how to structure the next 12, 10, however many workshops that we have to talk about the issues that you want to address in this next year. Marilyn, you expressed to me a project that you wanted to take a look at.
Yeah, like sidewalks was, around the lake or something. I know someone had mentioned that, those are easements, but actually, the road commission owns 33 feet. Basically, the road commission owns all the parking on all those lake houses. That belongs to the road. I'd like to see, I'm sure they still own just as much property on the other side that it wouldn't, I don't think it would be a huge issue like we've run across on some of these, for the easements. It is already there. So that would even if we couldn't get a long sidewalk, at least, where on the south side of the lake on East Shore where there is currently a sidewalk that would be east of Main Street and to basically Lake Pine, almost Lake Pine. There is an old sidewalk there that's just, disintegrated, and it's very hard even to use that sidewalk for walking or riding bikes or anything. There's so much, it's just deteriorating that it's becoming more gravelly, and it's scary to even ride your bike right there, knowing that, if you're coming to a stop and, you feel like you're losing control of your bike a little bit, that you're going to be right in the road, I would like to see something, stuff like that, that we could possibly use as with the fund balance that we've talked about. What do we want to do with that money? That would be something I think would be very nice. And the sewer capacity analysis are my 2 top things.
Is there some way we can take a look backwards over the past year and pick up on those things that we talked about that, and I can't even think of a thing right now, that we did not follow up on? We might want to.
Do you want me to put together an analysis?
Yeah.
Like go back?
Go back from our retreat.
Yeah. Do we want to have another retreat? Maybe a shortened one.
I'm up.
I don't know if we need more ideas. I think, maybe to implement or,
Whatever.
If we were going to do it.
I just want to always keep bringing up 7 Mile.
Oh, well.
Because we've ruined what we have. I mean, we talk about walking and biking around the lake, and East Shore is a huge area that runs along the lake. I just don't want us to forget about it. I mean, if we spend money on things,
Are you talking about expanding 7 Mile?
just having 7 Mile go
Through, right.
Donna Lane, so that the police department doesn't have to go down East Shore all the way around, and the fire department to get to the bulk of Northfield Township.
I know, but how are we going to pay for
It's
that?
almost like we've thrown it away, or consider zoning that part of East Shore commercial, because it's really becoming pretty sad as residential, at least where I live.
And if none of you have ever walked to East Shore, I would highly
You can't
recommend
do it.
you.
Can't
It's
do
scary.
it. At night,
Oh,
it's
there's-
just horrible.
You're absolutely
And
right.
so-
My wife tells me that she cannot
What
walk
can
down
we
East
do?
Shore
What
without
about the
it.
people who live there? That it's not even a residential neighborhood anymore. It's like you're on a busy street, and
Would you be in favor of a sidewalk project around the lake?
well, like Marilyn said, a lot of that is actually, there is the aprons of people's driveways. I mean, I don't know which side of the road you do it. I'd be in
It'd be
favor
on
of
your side.
anything, a
It'd be on-
bike path. It wouldn't even have to be a sidewalk.
It'd have to
Just-
be on your side
Right.
of the road.
Just something designated as
2 feet
pedestrian
just to get the
friendly.
people out of the road, at least on the other side of the
And-
red, yellow
and
line.
people that walk, let's say from Eagle Gardens, once they get out, you see them pushing their baby carriage, they get out to East Shore, they turn around and go back because they'd like to walk to town. So not necessarily a sidewalk. Anyway, this is
I like your idea of
always
7
my idea because I've lived here for 37 years and I've watched it become worse and worse and worse to the point where I can't go out there. I mean, I have to build up my, to take the dog for a walk. I have to build up my courage, get my flashlight, and it's really scary.
Where are we at with the downtown committee meeting or establishing one?
We haven't started.
Anyone else for ideas or anything that maybe the retreat or what?
Because I know it's probably on everyone's mind. I have probably called the appraiser every other day for the last week. I'm waiting on appraisals to come back for the non-motorized path. I'm just waiting.
I just talked to him 2 days ago. He says he's haven't finished presently.
Yeah, that's what I got last week. Late last week, I got
I'm
the
just
same thing.
telling you.
Yeah, no.
What's
I
taking
appreciate-
so
I'm glad
long?
you told me that
I
because I
mean,
called him yesterday
that would
and today.
be probably one of my number one is to complete a project that we have started from the very beginning.
What's
is that
taking them so
non-motorized
long?
pathway.
What's that?
What's taking them so long?
That I can't answer any longer.
Well, I think if anybody asks me a question the most about what's going on in the township, that's when I get asked the most.
Yeah, I just
Non-motorized
got, a
path.
week ago, I got an email about it, yeah.
I mean, you will have, I can tell you that as soon as we get the appraisals back, we will then be in the decision-making phase as to what to do next.
It was the board before us that started that.
And I do need you all to come downstairs at some point and pick out carpet, pick out what your vote is for carpet, because I gotta figure out.
That's another accomplishment, that the boardroom will be done.
It will be done before you leave.
Do we get to use it once?
You might.
Yeah, goodbye.
No, I'm not just picking one.
Well, you can always run again.
Yes, now there's an idea. We could
Collectively,
sit
that's fine.
together.
Collectively, we hope that we all have decent taste. I can't do that, because as soon as I pick something, somebody will say, oh, it's too dark. No, it's too light. No, it's too busy. Oh, I don't like that.
Just let the
So-
girls in the office pick.
I did. We narrowed it down to 3.
Yeah, because light will get.
And ironically, Rick was most interested in the design process.
Anyone else have any other thoughts, comments on board goals?
No, not tonight, but I think I would like to look back at the agenda items from the old workshop items, and that would probably, I'm a little bit tired tonight, and nothing's really jumping out at me, but I know that if I looked at the other agendas, I would be able to come up with a list pretty easily.
All right, Howard,
I
can
can
you
do
get
that.
that together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Dockett, do you have anything?
No, we're gonna do living water church.
Yeah, yep, I'm on it. Number 8, Living Water, Caroline with Kiwanis.
Yeah,
So what-
Living Water wanted to do an event, kind of caroling with Kiwanis, with the Christmas trees, kind of coordinate with them. I don't have any issues with it. Singing.
Chris singing Christmas carols.
Just there from what I can gather. Yeah. I don't have any issues with it. I'm sure they're going to give out, I'm sure they're going to give out, Jackie, is this your understanding too?
Just volunteering 2 or
So
3
you're not-
nights.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they're going to give
Our
out
club is not part of
refreshments
it.
and
I have a
promote
concern.
their church, so there is a promotion of a church. I have no issue. I mean, I don't personally have any issues with it. I think so, yes.
Is it
If
just
there's
a one?
if it's anything different,
encourage-
I'll let you know.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is
Actually, I have
create
an
more of a atmosphere of, because if you've ever volunteered at the Christmas tree thing, I mean, it is kind of neat when people come down and talk with you and everything, and they usually do have music going on and all that, but this just it just brings it up a level of,
Are we
you know.
discussing number 8 right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
With them caroling and everything, it just brings it up a level. That's why I was wondering, is why do we have to?
Yeah, do we need, yeah,
No.
Previously, you guys wanted to approve the stuff that related to 75.
I can't hear you, Howard.
Oh.
Okay,
Well,
so
we already
I've always,
approved the Kiwanis being there, right?
yes, I've always
I just
taken,
assumed that was all, it was.
They could do
do you
whatever
need
they
approval
want,
for
yeah.
this, or just go ahead? I mean, do you need an approval for it?
not
or-
anymore, I don't.
Okay.
Not from the response
I don't
that I'm
know.
hearing.
Are they like good singers? Do we? I mean, I'm concerned.
Actually, I went to one of their Christmas things last year. It was wonderful. All right, then, anything else?
That's it. That's all I got.
Our second-
I do have, I do have the bond indebtedness ordinance out if you all want to take a look at it and read it. It's,
Like tonight?
no, but I did bring it out. It's,
I was just joking.
oh, okay. Sorry.
All right. So this takes us on to our second call to the
Lawrence,
public.
welcome
Is there
to-
anyone that would like to speak?
For the singing?
Come on up.
Udo Hof, 6451 Whitwell Neck Road. Yeah, everything is kind of happy and sounds good, but I'm also happy. Happy to follow the meeting and see that following all the meetings so far, what comes up with the SAD is all of the question, have you done your homework? You didn't. So I'm really glad to hear this and to really realize this. And another thing is, I asked several times, don't you put the cart in front of the horse? Yes, you manage it. You're getting there. Because when you start with an SAD, you start out with a sewer plant and not with how to get somebody hooked up. And following the meeting and what's going on question from your side and comments is, your conclusion is, you have no clue what's really going on with this kind of stuff because you didn't do your homework. Pretty simple. That's what my professor would say. Homework not done, you missed it. The other thing is, if you need some money, we offered already a lot of information to you, an information package put together by my wife. We submitted this at the second hearing, and you didn't even look at this. Give you a hint, you missed on an EPA grant for population of a township below 10,000, and there's a grant available, and. There's a lot of money out there. You know what? It just needs to be somebody going out and pick it up. So now with this, oops, I have forgotten there was an ordinance, and we are now asked to vote to cover $800,000 by bonds. I feel like being pretty much thrown underneath the bus. Thank you very much. And I think others in the township will feel the same. And not knowing something doesn't prevent from being punished. So I think it was a nice enlightening tonight to see that things come to the surface, that you vote on something where you have not been properly prepared for. And for us in the township, that is very, very scary. And then you wonder why some of us kind of come up and say this kind of a comment and those kind of comments. That don't you think we feel responsible, and you are the leadership here for us in the township, and you belittle us and think we don't know our stuff? I think we know more than you think of. And it's just too bad to see that you know so much little in our leadership of the township when it comes to the sewer district. And this is really something I cannot believe, and I cannot support. I support a lot for the township, but not this kind of stuff. So, and I don't know how you want to handle this. And you know what? Watching some of you, you don't care about this stuff. So why should I care about this? But I do. And I'll let you know how I will care about this. So time will come, election will come, and hopefully you're not nailed too much to your seats. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. All right. Board member comments. Anything? Wayne?
Yeah, I would like to, I will not be here, so I want to make my feelings known about hooking up to the sewer. If someone has a nice engineered field out there, I do not believe they should be forced to hook up to the sewer. However, they should be paying their per foot. I mean, so much per foot to go by, but I don't see why we should force them to hook into the sewer. And so I won't be around for that talk. I'd like to ask people to buy and use local services when you can. Thank you very much.
Wayne, do you have dates that you're going to be gone, or?
I will be gone for the December meeting and maybe the February.
Or January?
January,
okay.
I meant.
All right. Just so
there's only one meeting in December, so I'm not messing. And I'll put my attendance record up against anybody here.
All right. Anyone else? All right. I'll make a motion.
I'm kind of disappointed that Mr. Craig Warburton left. I wanted to comment on his comment about the board influencing the planning commission. I have not heard from any board member, and I know my other commissioners have not either had any influence or any discussion or any comment to them about anything that the planning commission discusses. So I get that people's perceptions are people's realities, but that does not mean it's true. And if people are going to make those kinds of accusations or comments, if they don't have facts to back it up, then I think that they should, number one, ask questions, And if they can't, if they don't have the facts, how can they make comments like that? It just, I am offended as a board member and a planning commission member because it's just not true.
Thank you, Janet. Well said. Anyone else?
I just wanted to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving, and just hope that everybody has safe travels with their family and eats well.
Great. Well said. Make a motion to adjourn.
There, it's okay.